And welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm Jeremy, I'm your host, and today I have a really special guest. Not only is he a special guest, but he is going to cover a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is Bigfoot. And he's an author. And yes, if you're listening to this episode on the day that it is released, I have found a way to get an author who covers Bigfoot to release an episode on my birthday, January 14th. Yes. I have Jake and Jeff here with me today, and they had no idea I was doing that, and I personally did that. I had to do it, guys. I just had to. Do you blame me?
No.
No, and happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
What are you, like 60 now?
Don't worry about that.
All right.
Classified.
Classified information, redacted, and all the other government black highlighter stuff. Anyways, let's get into it. Guys, do you have anything to put out before we jump into our special guest for today?
I do. It is dumping rain outside, and anywhere else that wouldn't be a big deal. I live in Southern California where it never rains. So if I lose power, which it's kind of been flickering on and off, if I lose power, then you guys are just going to have to deal with me cutting out middle of the episode or whenever that is.
Yep. And if he leaves, then he leaves, and he doesn't love anybody, any travelers of the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Right.
Just
and
know
I'm
that
never
he
coming
hates
back.
You.
Yep.
Yeah. He's done it before, guys. Anyways, Jeff, do you have anything to put out real quick?
No, I'm just munching on some Christmas candy. I'm ready to go.
Oh, wow. Real asshole. He's going to eat while we're recording. All right. Really quick, some updated information for you guys. We have now created a Facebook group, not just the Facebook page, but the group is there so that we can be more interactive with our fan base. Please, if you are a fan of the Facebook page, or if you just want to, be able to chat with us and check out all the cool articles that we post and links that are going to link you directly to our guest for tonight, as well as going over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can go to his guest page. We have a page for all of our guests there. Down at the bottom, there's a link that says guest. Click on it. Look for our guest for tonight, and it's going to have all of his socials and all of his links that you're going to be able to follow him on as well as the links for the book that he has out. One that we're talking about today, and the second one that we're going to talk about in a later episode. So we will have him back on. You can count on that. So before we get into it, let me introduce him. Our guest is a Sasquatch researcher for the BFRO, the Bigfoot Researchers Organization, and author of 3 books on the subject. He has consulted for 2 episodes of Finding Bigfoot on the Animal Planet television network, at least 70 published reports on the BFRO website, held a town hall meeting in Independence, Missouri, led 4 public and many, many more private expeditions looking for Sasquatch, and has interviewed over 200 witnesses. I am very excited to introduce the author of Sasquatch, Down the Rabbit Hole of Strangeness, published by our friends at Beyond the Fray Publishing. Without further ado, let me introduce you all to Carter Buschardt. Carter, welcome to the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Where's all the applause? I thought there was all this big applause.
Yeah. I'll put in an applause reel right there.
I'm feeling very insecure. How's it going, guys?
Everything's going good. It's much better now.
Oh, yeah. Just a little update. You may have got an old bio that maybe I sent it, but I've had almost 100 reports published to BFRO as of today, and I've probably spoken to 350 to 400 witnesses. That's including probably 250 or 3 just through the BFRO, and then through these books, I've had another 100 people contacting me with just all kinds of bizarre stuff, So I started out really wanting to be, and I still do want to be, a witness advocate, because a lot of these people that are telling me these quantum, paranormal, abstract, conceptual skill sets are ridiculed and scorned by a lot of investigators, because when they hear that, their mind is made up. They're dumb ape only. They can't do that. That doesn't happen. And they're just dismissed. So I got into this massively interviewing people and churning out reports because it was just blowing me away. And then after a lot of these reports, these people would say, well, I just saw a Sasquatch cross the road, stopped and looked at me, then kept walking. And, half the reports are those. But at the end of
Right.
some of these reports, they would say, I'm going to tell you something you may not believe. And I'm going, you just told me you saw a creature that doesn't exist walk across the road, stop, look at you, and kept walking. And you're going to tell me something I'm not going to believe? Bring it, please. Tell me some stuff. And they are, it's the mind speak and the cloaking and the structures and the language, the gibberish, the chatter, the Chinaman chatter. I mean, people just started regurgitating this stuff after I did about 40 podcasts last year. And so these people were listening to me. They were getting my contact info. They were calling and emailing. And so 16 of those people called me. I think 10 of them ended up in my second book. And it's all, I'd probably say 65, 75% of it has quantum aspects to it. Stuff you're going to shake your head and go, no, there's no way that happened. There's no way that can happen. So, but I'm just taking my, my author career and putting it on the line, and I'm just going to put this stuff out there. And if people don't like it, they don't want to buy the books, great. I want to sell books, but I'm just trying to spread the word, because there's people that are having these quantum paranormal type things happen, from mundane to very bizarre, and it's just not getting out there because nobody will talk to them, or they'll talk to them, but they won't put it in the reports.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they think of like the strangeness that goes on in the world, they think of the big three: the cryptids, the UFOs, the aliens, and the paranormal, the ghosts, spirits, and stuff. But what a lot of people don't understand is that there are a lot of situations that people have come forward with where two or all three of these major subjects in the strange world are tied together, are actually overlapping each other in an event that just blows people's minds. And, just like people coming forward, like myself, I witnessed a Bigfoot when I was younger. It took me a very long time to come forward. And my first couple experiences with coming forward were awful, absolutely horrible. And I was young person. So I never really came forward with it again until creating this podcast and talking with Jake. And so it's all about the platform that you talk on and the people who are listening. So there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that come to our episodes for some of the other stuff, some of the metaphysics that we talk about, or some of the other really strange things like time travel and all the other weird stuff that we've dived into, that they're going to say, oh, there's a spirit or a ghost side to Bigfoot, and there's an alien / UFO side to Bigfoot. Yes, there is.
Oh, yeah.
And that is why we have Carter here, because Carter is going to introduce us all to that world via his new book.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to set the stage here for why you don't believe, or anybody doesn't believe, that Sasquatch exists, UFOs exist. It's real simple. If you just do the math and think about it, it makes perfect sense. We are conditioned from the time we exit the birth canal to think a certain way, because we are taught that certain things are this way and certain things are not this way. And so if you take the teacher who taught 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 you, you go back 8 generations, 25 years of pop, you're at 200 years. So we're back in the 1820s, So that is 200 years of disinformation before the UFO or cryptid subject even really was broached. But if you're taught that there are no UFOs because our education system, religious scholars, your parents, because they were taught a certain way, when you see or hear that stuff, you just automatically tune it out. Well, that can't be because they say that doesn't exist. But, UFOs didn't exist. They say that they ridicule people for 80, 100 years. UFOs don't exist. There's no such thing as swamp gas. You're looking at the reflection of the Earth lights off the bellies of ducks as they fly overhead. That kind of crap. Those are real excuses. And you're told that stuff doesn't exist. Oh, but wait. The government has been lying to us. They just admit they've been lying to us for 80 years. So the whole thing is, we're indoctrinated from the time you're born. with the educational process. Now I'm talking about everything about science, philosophy, all that stuff. You're told how the world is, and only if you have an open mind and inquiring mind, and you start going, well, that doesn't make sense. Otherwise, you just go about your business. You don't really care about this other stuff. Well, if there's UFOs, that's great. But some of us really care about that because we're being lied to, and there's a reason we're being lied to. The Sasquatch don't exist. Well, I can guarantee you they exist, and they will finally admit it. They're not just another dumb ape in the woods, because if they were, what's the big secret? They're discovering new insects, apes, gorillas, fish.
Mm-hmm.
Every week, you're seeing something somewhere. National Geographic Channel, or somebody says, "Oh, scientists discovered this. They discovered a cranium. They discovered a new fish that lives in the bottom of the ocean 2 miles down. That it looks like a Ferris wheel. All kind of weird stuff."
Yeah.
So why is the big secret about?
Yeah.
What's the big secret about Sasquatch? They do exist. I'll just say they do exist. I've seen them. I've dealt with them. And many, many people that have seen them or experienced it will tell you the same thing. So that being said, let's just take that as a given for the purpose of this conversation. But it's just a dumb ape. So what's the big deal? What is it that they're hiding? What is it that they can do that we are not supposed to know about? Are they an alien gorilla hybrid of some type? Has their DNA or our DNA been altered to create the creature we now know as Sasquatch? I mean, what's the big secret? If it was just another species to throw in the mix, then why keep it such a big secret? And it's going to be admitted to. Someone's going to, the technology we have and the DNA testing and stuff like that. We're going to catch up to them. They're going to have to admit to something. They're going to kind of bullshit us like they have with the UFO thing and say, well, we don't build them. We know we can't build them. We don't have that technology, but we really can't say who they are, who built them. We'll get back to you, and you'll be stuck with that answer for the next year. But it's going to be the same thing with Sasquatch. They just can't BS forever. There's something going on. There's people. I got 3 people this week called me wanting to talk about their events. There's something going on, and they don't want you to know, and it must be worth hiding. It must be some really good stuff, because there's no reason to keep it a secret if it's just another gorilla.
I agree with what you're saying, and people might actually think it's a little bit abstract for me. I'm a Bible-believing Christian, but I can't help but I have plenty of Bigfoot groups I follow on Facebook. I have never had my own physical experience like Jeremy has, but recently, like 4 months ago, Jeremy, I went camping.
Something like that, yeah.
And the wood knocks, the screams, like all that stuff. It was crazy. Everyone in the campsite heard it. It was like 8 people, and we were all talking about it the next day. I found a footprint, that went right through our, a footprint that was behind my tent. It was just like, it was all right there. But I can't help but notice whenever these people in these groups and stuff, and they talk about like the idea that Bigfoot or Sasquatch could be like have a connection to the Nephilim in the Bible, right? The hybrids between humans and demons, or that it's in the realm of the demonic, or that it's some sort of government sort of thing or whatever. And you only can hear so much of these things. If you have a rational mind and you're open to just, learning new things instead of just the thing that you've been programmed to think, which I agree with you, and then you just stick with that same pattern. You're like, nope, everything else is complete crap. It's just this. If you're not that person, you're willing to open up your mind and consider the abstract.
Mm-hmm.
You can only see so much of these things and these reports and these, comparisons before you start to kind of see the, I guess, rationality behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And like what you're saying, yeah, it's just like 80 years of, UFO type stuff. And I'm a pretty firm believer in that there is no aliens that, people think out there. Maybe some like weird looking cows or something like that. But that all this stuff is probably government technology, whether it's our government, someone else's government. But even still, 80 years of, UFO sightings. And then finally they say, oh, well, you got us. Here's the evidence. And yeah, we know about these things. And it's like, yeah, why didn't you just say that in the beginning? So I agree with you that there is going to be some sort of reveal that happens at some point, that it's going to be some FBI cover up. It's going to have something to do with the missing 411 type stuff. Why all these people are disappearing. Something's going to happen where we're going to catch them with their pants down and they're going to be like, all right, you got us. So, but I agree with what you're saying. And I really like how you kind of dive into that a little bit in this book, because I really didn't expect it. And at the same time, kind of getting into it, I'm just like, I was like, I don't know about how like deep into the woo this book is going to go. But a lot of the points you made, I really latched onto, and I'm like, I really like this because I agree.
It's just it's my Brussels sprouts thing. It's my Brussels sprouts theory. Just because you consider it doesn't mean you believe it.
True,
but you should at least consider it. It's just like Brussels sprouts. I'm not sure I dig this stuff. Let me tell you, oh God, I hate them. But I'm at my host. I'll spread them around the plate. I'll play with my food a little bit. I'll make it look like I'm eating them, but I really won't. Then I'll take my plate away. Thank you very much. Well, it's the same with paranormal quantum type stuff or Bigfoot. Period. You don't have just to consider it. Doesn't mean anything. Nobody even has to know. You can get one of these books or do your own research. And nobody has to know. But you're secretly a closet flesh and blood guy only, but you're like, boy, flesh and blood doesn't really explain so much more of what we're hearing. So let's open my mind a little bit, and you start going into the paranormal stuff and the mind speak and the cloaking, the disappearing, where they walk through a tree and don't come out the other side, all the kind of stuff that is reported routinely, and you start going, there's something here, But I'm not about to, embarrass myself in front of the next cocktail party and say I believe in Sasquatch. So I'll just poo-poo everything to keep my cool and keep my reputation, So, but that's just it. If you have any kind of intellect at all, and just an open mind, just read some of the stuff that's in these books, my books, others, but anywhere. And if you pay attention and you start taking some notes, you're going to see there's a pattern. There's something going on with these people that are being enlightened, And I've seen one disappear right in front of my eyes on my thermal camera. It just poof, it turned into a puff of smoke. It looked like actually it went from a solid heat signature walking across a trail. I don't think it saw us. We were waiting for somebody else who we thought this Sasquatch was, and came around the corner. It wasn't the persons or the people we thought it was a Sasquatch, and it turned itself off. That heat signature just exploded, and it looked like a smoke. It looked like somebody had blown a smoke ring of the outline of a Sasquatch, and then it just dissipated into the night. And when I saw that, I went, okay, I'm moving over to a different team here, because this dumb ape in the woods thing ain't cutting it anymore, because I just saw this, and that ended up being one of my serious research areas, where I took my wife and we had our infrasound experience. But once you see that, and you're not hallucinating, you're not on drugs, you're not smoking dope, you're not a schizophrenic or paranoid schizophrenic or anything like that, no PTSD. You cannot see something that is not there unless you're taking drugs or suffering from PTSD or in a bad version of that. Unless otherwise you're a schizophrenic or paranoid schizophrenic, because they can actually see things that aren't there. So if you're none of those people and you see this stuff, game on. Try to explain it. Try to explain it to yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and go, "Hey, self, I just saw this last night. How am I going to explain that to myself?" Because I've been told by my religious scholars, my teachers, the politicians, the government, and science, that this shit doesn't exist. Excuse my French.
Sure.
And so, how am I going to explain that to myself? And I can't. So there we are. Here's our conundrum.
I want to say, before we go too deep into this, I'm not necessarily, full transparency here, everybody who listens to the show knows I'm not necessarily the cryptid guy on the show. I'm not big into Bigfoot or any of these things. I'm more of the conspiracy theorist. So I'm actually really interested to get into a lot of this stuff, because you're talking about some of the things that really do interest me, like, the quantum realms and the woo and all these other things. And also, obviously, the
brainwashing.
the generational indoctrination. Like, I'm big on that being a serious issue. So I'm excited for you to help bridge me into this Bigfoot realm as far as these two guys are, kind of with that aspect of all this.
Well, in the book, in the title, the chapter "Denial," I go into that in great detail, and it's all conspiratorial stuff, which I probably believe a good chunk of it. You know, the science, they work for the government. You want your government grants? You toe the company line. You say this exists. You say this doesn't exist. You say this happens. This can't happen. If you want your funding. So that's a game that politics plays, and that's why science denies these creatures to their last breath, because they want that tenure. They want those programs from the government and the funding. And if they start talking about stuff before they get permission, that funding's gone away. And social media, the news media, they're all in the game together, and that's why we are told what exists and what doesn't. The social media is even controlled. I think there's a governmental disinformation faction in there somehow. I was discussing this with somebody the other night. But
that just came out on the news 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But long story short, they're all scratching each other's backs to toe the company line because it's all about money. The lobbyists for the lumber companies and the forest companies, they are keeping people out of the forest in certain areas. They are getting legislation to deny these Sasquatch. I don't know if the missing 411 has anything to do with the national forest, but I guarantee you there's something weird going on there, and that's a whole other conspiracy. So, but I cover that in the book because it is how we are all brainwashed subtly and overtly, daily and weekly and monthly and yearly, by the government and the media and science, everybody working together to keep a lid on this stuff, And if you can't follow that, you just follow the money. Find out who the biggest contributors are to some of these programs, the broadcasters and the forestry companies and the paper companies. They have a lot to lose if a Sasquatch is discovered to be in the forest. They're going to have to shut down lumber and paper production until they figure this stuff out. They just don't want that to happen.
That's true.
Follow the money, but the Sasquatch, paranormal, any of that kind of stuff, there's far more going on, and some of these people are telling me stuff that, you can't not believe them. They're so sincere. They don't want any publicity. They don't want their name in lights. They don't want their name in the book, location. They just want to tell their story. And everybody's stories that are in my books, they're all, change the identity, change the location. The person, where they live and where it's at doesn't really matter. It's the event. So, but I take that out so they're totally protected. They can talk freely, and their name is Bob and Mary. I've got one of the couples in my book is Earl and Darlene. They're Georgia. They live in the sticks in Georgia, so their names are not Earl and Darlene, but that's the names they picked because they thought that was pretty gooberish. I thought it was kind of funny. They picked the names themselves. But they had fun with it. So, but wherever you want to go, I could tell you all kinds of stories. I could, just
let's dive into the very beginning of the book, right? So, let's talk about the forward for a minute. My absolute favorite line from your forward was, "I may not know what I saw, but I know what I didn't see."
Yeah.
And after reading your forward, I realized that I was going to really appreciate what you were going to have to say throughout this book. You came straight out. You laid down exactly what to expect out of you as a person and researcher of not just Sasquatch, but all things unknown. You explained how you don't know how everything works in this world, and when someone tells you that they saw something, even if it may seem far-fetched to others, you listened and took what they said for the value that they held it for. The reason why I like this so much is because I have been met with a lot of pushback and strange looks when I would tell my own story to someone. Hell, I created this podcast so that I can dive into the world that most won't accept and be surrounded by those that are curious or have similar experiences. And lastly, for the forward section of your book, and I think The travelers of the infinite rabbit hole will appreciate this. You took the time to explain that the world we live in is one that has been created for us. If we only listen to what has been told to us, we will never know and have an opportunity to learn and understand the real world.
Yep.
Great words, Carter.
Oh, thank you.
That just wanted to touch on your forward, because it's often a very overlooked portion of a book, but your forward was so strong that I really wanted to bring some attention to that.
Well, thanks. I was trying to set the stage, and it lubricates you in a different way, and because there is concepts here you're just simply going to automatically reject because you've been taught to. You may not believe it personally, but why do you not believe it personally? Because you've been taught not to believe that stuff. So I'm just trying to, lubricate you up a little bit and let you see that, there's things out there. There's nothing wrong to think about them and talk about them. And if you've experienced them, you will find someone to talk to who will not, throw it back at you and laugh at you. There's people out there who want to listen to stuff. I'm one of those. My experience with infrasound is intriguing because I took my wife out to a research area. And we were talking about this before the show started, and she's very supportive, but she was always been kind of like, well, I believe you believe, honey, kind of patronizing kind of stuff, in a friendly kind of way. I said, well, tell you what, I want to take you out and tell you, because I come back and tell her all my stuff, and she sees the stuff, and the pictures of footprints and handprints and stuff. She sees all the stuff on my desk, and she's going, well, there's probably some pretty cool stuff here, I got to admit, But anyhow, so I took her to my research area. And this is where I saw the Sasquatch disappear when I was leading that expedition. It's where the one that vanished on my thermal camera. So it's a real rugged little area. It's in South Missouri. And that is one of my main research areas. And I would say 90% of the time when I go out there, I see or hear something that is Sasquatch related. So I took her out there. And if anybody knows what infrasound is, this is a audio sounds and ranges that are above and below the human range of hearing. But Sasquatch used them. Whales, dolphins, tigers, lions, elephants, many creatures use infrasound to communicate, and in some instances, perhaps hunt and stun prey by disabling them. Because when your body is exposed to these sounds, these infrasound levels that are above and below the range of hearing, it can distort your vision. It can cause cramping. It can cause you to possibly see things, become fearful, and you become disoriented. This is how Sasquatch are alleged to take down deer. Just run up behind them, and they're totally disoriented by the infrasound sound running all around them. You see deer running around with their heads cut off. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to run. And Sasquatch run up behind them, grab them by the back legs, break the legs, disable them, and tear them open, and it's all over. So infrasound could be, and look up infrasound. It's in the book, and I explain it pretty well, but you can look it up, infrasound, what it's used for. So anyway, took my wife to this area. I told her, I'm going to show you. And of course, when you say that, nothing ever happens. You know how embarrassing that is. I'll show you. And of course, nothing happens. Yeah, right, honey. Anyway, we're there, and as soon as she gets to this area, she's creeped out. She's already freaking out, and she's a Nebraska farm girl. She's not like a wimp, She'll pop the head off a chicken and pop a squat. And she has no. She's a camping girl. She's not scared, a city girl and scared of leaves and bugs stuff. So she starts getting creeped out right away. And I felt what she was feeling. It's that feeling that somebody's there. There's a presence. Somebody's looking at you, watching you. There's that sensation. I'm used to it. I mean, when I go to this area, I expect it. When it happens, I'm going, well, they're here. They're around somewhere. So we're walking down this ravine, and where I had to go was about 75 to 100 yards down this ravine. And we parked at this metal gate. You can't drive down this ravine, no way, shape, or form. I parked my car there. I backed it in, and we're walking down. And where I was going to take her was at the bottom of this ravine, and you take a little right. That's where I saw that Sasquatch disappear when I led this expedition like 3 years before. I took her here in 2017. Anyway, we're walking down there. She's getting the heebie-jeebies. She's freaking out. Now, I want to go. Just go back to the camp. I believe you. He said, no. I want to go. I want to show you something. I want to show you this area. You really feel something here. And so she was a trooper, and she went down, but she started getting worse and worse and worse. And I was going, look. The car is just right up here, so don't worry about it. I shined my light up where the car was, and it was not there. I went, where's the car? She goes, it's right there. I said, no, the car's not here. I'm shining the light right up. There's no car there. It's gone. And so for whatever reason, I shined the light down to where I was going, which is the bottom of this very rocky ravine. And there's my taillights. I said, how did our car get down there? I'm shining the light, and she's looking down there, and I'm seeing my taillights, and she's going, there's no car there. What are you talking about? Yeah, a car. How did it get down there? I didn't park there. And I shined it back up to where I did park. I said, look, it's gone. And she looked up there, and she goes, you're out of your mind. That's where the car is. I said, no, it's gone. It's down here at the bottom. I did that 2 or 3 times, and then the third time I shined it back up, and it was where I parked it in the first place. So I am being made to see, and I was aware of, I'm probably getting zapped, and I just don't know it. I think I'm getting zapped. And I kind of knew it, but I was still, my cognitive self was like, no, this can't be. My car can't, it's not up there, it's down there. How did it get down there? What's going on? So I was a caricature of myself. I was like being victimized by the people I came to see, And so after 2 or 3 times, I shined the light back up where the car should be, and there it was. I shined the light back down at the bottom where it couldn't have possibly been, and it was gone. See? I told you. I said, no, it would. Anyway, that told me everything I needed to know about infrasound, and it told her that I'm not farting around when I tell you I'm seeing and experiencing some of these things, because she was there, and she was getting up the creepy vibe. She got that, and she was amped up, and she was ready to get the heck out of there. So that is my best example of infrasound and having a personal relationship with it. My point with that is that infrasound affects different people in different ways. Now, we were both within 5 or 10 feet of each other at all times. So they singled me out so that she wasn't hit also, or maybe she was getting hit, but with a different frequency, because I was seeing something that wasn't where it was supposed to be. It existed, but I was seeing it where it shouldn't have been. My wife was watching me freaking out, and she already had the high alert, hair standing up on the back of your neck, somebody's here, somebody's watching, a feeling of being watched, that such a very famous description. So, but we both got hit, and they singled me out for a hallucination, and they let her probably just freak out watching me freaking out. It gave me clarity, because I said, damn, that is some talent. They singled me out. They culled the herd. There was 2 of us, and they had me, who knew better. But at the moment it was happening, I couldn't do anything about it. I said, that's impossible. That can't be. But there it was. And I saw it clear as a bell. And then when I'm looking at it and I'm seeing it and I'm shining my light, look, honey, look, there it is right there. It's not there. What are you talking about? That spoke volumes, and it still does. To me, that's one of my best examples of, being manipulated mentally to see something. And Ron Moorhead, you're familiar with Ron Moorhead? In his book, Sierra Sounds, when they were trapped in their lean-to, and they wanted to go outside, they just didn't know what was in store for them, because they heard these creatures come up who were talking, they were chattering. This is one of the first times they recorded all their chatter. And then they started, grunting and gruffing and huffing and puffing and slamming trees and stuff. So they went and got in their little hut that they built. It was kind of a lean-to. And they were safe in there. And all of a sudden they heard their camp being destroyed. This is a camp they went to. It was 8 miles up the mountain on switchbacks. It took you forever to get up there. But they had garbage cans chained to trees, and they kept supplies there for years. They had firewood and food and matches and fuel if they needed it, and other things they needed. And nobody ever found that campsite, so they had it all locked up. Anyhow, they were hearing all their dishware, all their garbage cans, stuff being ripped off the trees and thrown down the mountain, and their horses let go, and they're running off in the distance, and they're going, oh, God, how are we going to get out of here? So it got quiet, and they finally went outside, shined the lights. Nothing had happened. But they all, 3 guys, heard their camp being destroyed. That's why you ought to get that book, Quantum Bigfoot. He goes into great detail, but they all were made to hear something that did not happen.
I'm sorry if you said it already, but did this happen at the Sierra camp?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. I've heard so many stories about this. And of course, you see Ron Moorhead tell his story on a lot of documentaries. He's a very, very popular name. And he's also the recorder of the Sierra Sounds, which actually Jake and I were just talking about today. He actually looked it up for the first time, and he was able to hear the Sierra Sounds for the first time due to your book.
Yeah, it sounded just like what I heard in Dinky Creek. It's crazy. I was just like, all right, cool. Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. We'll have to do like a deep dive into the Sierra camp, because that place alone, with and without Ron Moorhead, there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens there.
Yeah, but that is another, and it's almost an identical example. They were made to hear something. They were all 3 hearing it, and they were all lamenting having to go out there and clean this up at 11 o'clock at night and try to run their horses down a mountain and find them in the dark. They were just like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And nothing had happened. Yet they all heard it. It was loud and it was real. They heard it like it was right outside the shelter, and it was. And then when they went out there, nothing had happened.
So here goes a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think the purpose of that is? If they're making all this noise, obviously they're creating a noise with infrasound that you're familiar with, right? They have to be doing it for a reason. Are they doing it to just mimic noise that they hear often? They're trying to, communicate in a form of mimicry? Or do you think that they're actually being territorial and saying like, hey, we're causing this huge ruckus, you need to get the fuck out of here?
Hey everybody, bear with us while we take this quick break.
Well, I think it's more that they're showing you who's boss. See what we can do. They had just started experiencing these creatures. They heard this chatter, this language that they had recorded. They'd heard this, and they're going, oh my God, who is it? What are they doing? I think it must be a Sasquatch. Let's mimic them and let's talk to them. And they started going back and forth on those tapes. If you listen to those tapes, Ron and a couple of his guys were mimicking them. They were mimicking the sound and going back and forth with them. So I think at some point they were showing them who's boss, because there was it could have been intimidation and fear, again, because you're in our territory. And when I experienced it with my wife, I was in their territory, and it was the same thing. I think it was a show of power. This is what we can do. It wasn't like a threat. I didn't take mine as a threat. I took it as somebody's just showing off, and you did a darn good job of it, and Ron and them. So, but they were manipulated. So they're just showing you that they're, maybe not intentionally, but they're showing you that there's more to them than just some dumb, ignorant ape in the woods. There's more to them. And it had the same effect on me. I was being controlled, and I had no control over it. I couldn't do anything to stop it until they decided to stop it. And it's the same with Ron and them. They were having this incredible explosion of their camp being destroyed, and when it finally stopped, they went outside and nothing had happened. See what we can do?
something you said there just kind of clicked for me, because I did hear that in the audio. You can hear what's the tree knocks, you can hear the wailing outside, and then you can hear people, imitating the sounds. And so when you're saying that, when you're saying like trying to show dominance or trying to, be more present, I don't know, it kind of clicked for me that when we have no idea what the tree knocks mean, or and you kind of go into it in your book what the symbols might mean, as far as like the limb structures, the teepees, all that sort of stuff, and how the Native Americans had their symbolism and what this could represent. But when it comes to sounds and stuff, me and Jeremy talked about this. Every single animal in the animal kingdom, with the exception of maybe like mollusks, have some sort of verbal or visual communication that they can understand what they're saying. If we have no idea what that is, say, for example, all the tree knocks, all the wailing and the screams, the howls and all that stuff, say it was the alpha male saying, however they represent themselves and distinguish amongst each other in the group, hey, I'm the alpha, I'm trying to contact this person over here. And then you have, one of these team members that are screaming out, no, I'm the alpha and I'm over here. And they're just like, wait a second, no, this is who I am. I'm going to, put on this elaborate display to prove myself. Maybe I'm being challenged right now, because maybe they're just seeing, hey, let's do the same call and see if they'll call back. And it's like, well, what are you saying to them right now? What are they saying to each other? And you're imitating something in there. What was that conversation?
Yeah.
Now what's going to happen because you're challenging that, maybe, right?
You may have just insulted them by mimicking.
Right. Yeah.
They may have been saying, "But let's kick these little humans' ass." And you turn around and say the same thing to them because you just go, well, I'm going to say that back. And then a rock comes flying and misses your head by a quarter of an inch.
Yeah, that 200-pound log you took that picture of that's just kind of suspended right there on those saplings comes launching out and flattens the tent and kills everybody inside of it. Yeah.
So you do have, when you're in those situations, you do, and many people don't, but you do have to take into consideration when you start talking gibberish back to them of what you're saying, because you don't know what you're saying. And if you think you're mimicking them and you get just a couple of syllables off, well, you may have just threatened to nuke their family. So you just have to, and I've been foolish enough to repeat the Chinaman chatter when I was leading that expedition in Illinois to try to get a rise out of them, because I wanted them, and they did react you could feel that they were rushing to the edge of this ravine and looking down at us. You could just feel it. We couldn't see them. I didn't get any heat signatures, but you could sense their presence. It was just the weirdest thing, because I've never been in a situation where they were just there and they let us know they were there, but they did not interact in any way. They didn't return a knock. They were just throwing sticks and twigs at us as we walked down this ravine. So, but you never know what you're saying. And I said it just to get a rise out of them, and it worked, most everybody wanted to go home after that. but again, you just don't know what they're saying, and so you just have to be cautious. And the knocks are the same thing. That's a whole nother show. Oh my God, I could talk all night on just knocks and counting. They know how to count. They can count us. I've been counted many times,
I was reading that in your book. It was very interesting. I was just like, huh.
It's pretty interesting. In the first book, the one you have, it's Down the Rabbit Hole. My book is, it's also the Down the Rabbit Hole, to clear up confusion, is my first book that I wrote, self-published myself before I picked up the book deal with Beyond the Fray. And that was called Sasquatch, Evidence of an Enigma. And since there has been confusion, I'm not doing a book plug, I'm just trying to clarify.
Right.
The new book that I'm
plug away, yeah.
We'll
have you on, yeah.
the Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma 2 2022 edition is coming out here in a couple of weeks. That's what I was talking about. It's going to come out with Beyond the Fray, but they're going to do the black and white version on Amazon and the Kindle. I'm going to do my color books. They're trying to keep the cost down. The books that I self-publish, they're the same books, same content, but my books are all color and
I'm getting that one.
nice slick pages, and I autograph all of them. I'll personalize
nice.
my autograph. I sell them out of my house. It's $22 plus shipping, but the books cost a lot more to publish.
Right.
Black and white versions will probably be about $14.95 on Amazon.
Is that the one that you sent to me?
The one I sent to you, did I send you the Evidence of an Enigma 2, the green one?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one that's coming out on the 13th of January.
So when this episode comes out, that's yesterday, everybody, just so you know.
Yeah, they are going to release, when my book is printed and they tell me the printing's done, I'm going to send my book to Beyond the Fray, and they're going to publish a black and white version of the green book with that same cover. We got the cover. We had a problem with the covers, too much confusion with 3 different covers for one book. It was just, just didn't work out. Anyway, so the book you have, Sasquatch 2, Enigma 2, is going to be Enigma 2 2022 version, and that's going to be sold by me. They'll have a black and white version on Amazon, and it will be Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma. It's going to be my exact cover that you see, that you've already got. It's going to be that cover, but it's going to be black and white. So there'll be 2 different price points.
Well, I'm definitely going to go and get the colorized version. Okay, question for you. So the entirety of the beginning of this book that we're talking about now, the Down the Rabbit Hole of Strangeness.
Yep.
This, you really stress how people need to open up their minds to the idea of Sasquatch communicating through various forms. As a Sasquatch researcher for the BFRO and through your own private things, have you really come across a tremendous amount of people that just can't grasp the idea that even if it's as simple as body language, that animals communicate with each other? Or is it just exclusively the Bigfoot? They're like, oh, no, it couldn't be. Because literally every other great ape in the world hoots and hollers and has body language and all kinds of stuff. Why would the Sasquatch, if it was just a flesh and blood creature, if let's just call it that, why would it be any different? At the basics, right?
Most of the blowback I get is from fellow researchers, fellow people, Bigfoot groups that are on Facebook, and they call themselves researchers and experts,
right?
All this stuff. And I've left most of those groups. I can't put up with the drama. I don't need to go back to high school. I've been out of high school for a long time. I don't need to go back.
I feel that, right?
Yeah. But most of the blowback is because I'm a gambling guy, and if something doesn't make sense, I'm gonna go try something different. And so I was mostly ape, flesh and blood only, but there was something that was always telling me, it was always nagging at me that there's something really just not right with some of this, because some of the stuff is not explainable.
Yeah.
And so then when the one disappeared and I saw it, I went, okay, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. This is stupid. If this offers, doesn't necessarily answer, but it offers other possible explanations for some of the things that you see and hear, or think you see and think you hear.
Right.
And these creatures could be, I just read another really good book, Everything You Know Is Wrong by Lloyd Pye. Really, if that talks about the manipulation of human DNA and the creatures that were already here on this planet, which may have been the Sasquatch. They were probably here long before we were. And we are the resulting manipulation of DNA to get us down to the hairless humans that they needed to mine gold. That's a whole other story.
That's right up my alley there.
There's many stories. There's a rabbit hole, baby, But if Lloyd Pye has got like a dozen books. You ought to look into that, because it gets into the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, and they came down to this planet and they didn't like what they saw here, but they needed the gold to plug the holes in their atmosphere. I'm going down a whole other direction here, but what I'm getting at is manipulation of DNA with the creatures that were here, and with the DNA they brought with them from their planet, the 10th planet, and it goes into great detail. The Sumerians have written this all out in all these gold cylinders that are just, it talks about, but it talks in great detail about the manipulation of DNA. So we and the Sasquatch could be connected. There could be an alien Sasquatch connection. I'm starting
Be the
to get
Nephilim,
report, and Ron Moorhead really goes into that. That's that book, what he thinks they're the Nephilim. And I've heard different explanations of the word Nephilim. It does not mean fallen angel or evil one. It just means fallen. It's not a negative. The demonic thing came from other sources, which I don't remember where I read that. But anyway, the connection, the red-haired giants. There were giants in those days in the land. In those days, there were giants in the land. I think that's the biblical quote. It's all in there. It's all there, but it's just been so covered up and mishmashed, and it's so confusing. And that's just the way they want it. So we don't know what's going on. But if humans have been altered, or Sasquatch have been altered to come up with humans, because the Sasquatch have been here, to go with Native American lore, before the white man even got on this continent. The Sasquatch were here, and they were sent here to protect the land and the earth and to provide and teach us how to live on the planet. And so that's why the Native Americans and the Sasquatch are all tied in the very distant past. So there's just so many things that make more sense. And I think you're going to find a lot more commonality in the quantum paranormal field than you will with just the dumb ape in the woods, because you're stuck.
Right.
It's a dumb ape. Well, and one of the things I say in the books is that are they actually disappearing, or are they making us think they disappear? Or are we going into some kind of mini PTSD meltdown when we see something we don't understand and we just think they disappeared? Either way, it's a crazy conundrum, but there's so many descriptions of them walking through trees and walking through the walls in a house and speaking to you. And, I've got a couple of friends up in Canada who are, they're having intimate relations, not sexual, but intimate, in that these creatures are entering their bodies and manipulating their internal organs to help cure certain maladies and diseases.
So
think about that.
Let me ask you this question.
You
do you think that this I don't know what phrase to really put this on, the frequency manipulation thing, do you think that has anything to do with like the shitty camera footage that we get? Because I said this one day kind of half joking, like, oh, I wonder if they're like
the blob squatch.
They're blocking the cameras or somehow. Do you think that has something to do with it as well?
I think so. Yeah, I think they can, change their vibrational frequencies, and I think they can affect the electronics in our gear. You've got that second book. Did you see that nice handprint I have in there?
I did, yes.
What do you think of that?
That is nuts.
So there goes the theory they can manipulate, because this creature walked right by the camera. And like I said in the book, I don't think Johnny Sasquatch got the memo that you're not supposed to walk in front of these boxes with eyeballs on them, because that's how the humans try to spy on us. But he didn't get that memo. And
I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of those pictures with my phone and send it to the chat that I have with the guys.
Yeah, I want to see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'll send it.
Now that first one that has the accompanying story about the destroyed camera, that's not in my second book. I took that one out, but I replaced it with something else. But there's an example of, you don't have to get a blurry photo, but it could be. I do believe they can alter either the electronics, or they can alter your signaling in your brain from one cell to another that keeps your hands from being steady.
Holy crap. Look at this picture.
Isn't that cool?
Try to tell me that's a bear.
Yeah. I've had people say, well, that's a snapping turtle. Well, that's got to be
that's a fish.
Beaver. That's a beaver.
Yeah. It's a beaver jumping 5 feet in the air.
I'm not going to post these pictures on Facebook for those that are listening, because this is one of the main reasons why you need to go out and get his book, is because of the photos that are in these books.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna do that to Carter. He puts a lot of time and effort into all of this, and you can see that his heart and soul is put into these books. And I want the listeners of the Infinite Rabbit Hole to go and check out these books. They're well worth it. But right before we go and talk deeper about this, I want to talk about this page that's right next to your first picture here in your second book. And I know we said we were going to stick to the first book today.
That's okay. We'll go wherever you want.
I really want to talk about this one. Gentlemen, I am sending you a picture right now of this. Jake, you are very familiar with this page already. These are your grab and go red circles that you see all
makes me
over.
so aggravated. Oh my gosh. I fought with a guy on Facebook because he took a picture of a log and he said it was a Bigfoot's head coming out of a hole in the ground. And I was like, bro, this is it was a tree stump. And we were fighting on Facebook till eventually I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And I just got off of there. I was just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or they circle just nothing. And they're just like, it's got a predator cloaking thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Carter, this is the funniest page I think I've ever seen in books.
It is amusing. It was insulting to some, but it's just like, if you have to draw a circle, and of course I can't speak a lot because I put arrows in my book to point to some of these rocks, but hey, they're not the dreaded red circle. Everybody hates looking at those red circles. That's like the Karen of Sasquatchery, there's the red circles. But
that's funny.
Yeah. And so, but I that first photo, the top hand photo, that is no longer in the book, but the second one is in, because the chain of command was bothering me. I didn't want to have that in the redo of the second book. I took it out. Mm-hmm. So there's a contradiction in the theory that they can affect. So maybe they're affecting our chemistry or our nerves to the where, and you're going to be freaking out anyway if you see a Sasquatch. You try to pull your phone up. A lot of people have gotten voice mind speak. Don't take that picture. Don't pull that trigger. A lot of
I have heard that a lot.
Several hunters have told me that a couple of them have told me they've heard, "Don't shoot me, don't shoot at me, I will kill you." Mm-hmm. To don't pull the trigger, and they were thinking that anyway because they were looking at it and going, "I couldn't do it. I had it in my sight. I could have shot it, but it looked just like a human. I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just couldn't do it." And there you have it. And what manly macho hunter wants to say he's a wimp and losing his shit up in a tree? But he's telling me these stories because it's affected him. That he has to get it off his chest. He wants to know what's going on out there. How come nobody's telling us about this stuff? So it's crazy. It's super, super crazy. And that Sasquatch, I've been out to this guy's property with that hand picture. I've been out to his property, and he just contacted me about 2 weeks ago. He had 3 of his trail cameras destroyed.
Nice.
He has 36 cameras in this one little area on his property. They're set up in groups of 3. They're triangulated. And so each camera takes a picture of the other cameras. So if one misses something, the other one gets it. Mm-hmm. And they have, I think he's got 12 or 13 groups of 3s in this area that's probably not even an acre. Very well covered. It's very elaborate. And but one of the cameras had the chip, the SD card. It was a mini SD card in one of those adapters. It was stuck in the camera. Mm-hmm. It was broken. It was like somebody had taken a pair of pliers or squeezed it real hard, and it broke the little soldered connector, the little gold, strings. It broke all those. But the portion of the camera where it was plugged in, that was undamaged. But it tore it literally broke straps. It just tore those straps. It didn't bite them or cut them. They were pulled apart and ripped. The plastic that it was on the camera, the thing that held the straps on, they were broken off. The metal clip was just ripped off. And this camera, and I've sent it to 2 labs, and one of the labs still has it, and they can't find. It's like it doesn't register, and it was put back in the camera because that slot, the internal workings of that camera were not damaged, but something opened that, took one of those. This is from the lab guys that are telling me this is the only way this could have happened because the camera's not damaged at this point, where it slides into the slot. That camera chip card was squeezed and bitten and then put back in the camera.
Jeez.
It's like, and this guy didn't make stuff up. He sent me a dozen pictures of the cameras, and he showed me they're all just torn to crap. They're just like, oh my God. Now, a bear is an obvious choice. This is in southwestern Texas, but they don't open and close and take out a computer card. They just don't do that.
Right.
Just and so the only way that I can get, if there is a picture or 2 on there, the only thing I can do is spend $500 to $1,000 to send it to some of these big labs, and they rebuild the computer chips. They rebuild the SD cards, and they get all the data off of it. I don't have the money to do that. I don't know if he does either, but that's where I'm at with it. So my whole point is, but my whole point is that this was manipulated. Now, if it was a human, why wouldn't you just take the camera? What are you trying to tear them up and then leave the evidence behind with your fingerprints? Why wouldn't you just take the camera if there's something on there you didn't want? You know? So it was just a weird event. And there's more to that story. And there's a forestry guy down there that believes that they are interdimensional type beings. And he knows a cave where he thinks they work there. He's a forestry service worker who said, "You don't tell anybody I told you this, I'll deny it, but I'll take you to a couple of caves." And so I've been invited, and I haven't talked to him yet to get it all put together. But weird stuff like that, are they smart enough to open and close a camera after ripping it off a tree? And this was at a gifting area. When I was down at his property, I made a gifting area there. I had a bag of navel oranges hanging from a tree. I went to Dollar Tree and got some children's toys and some beads and trinkets. And this happened at that tree. And like the other 2 cameras that were broken, the chips had stuff on them, but they had some blank frames too. They had a couple of deer and some other, just game. But this 3rd camera, something took that chip out and put it back in. Crazy weird.
Jeez.
Can't tell you what it is. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So just for my own interest, so I have no issue with the idea of the woo-woo side of Sasquatch, right? But when it comes to the however it goes about, proving to science that something actually exists, in my mind, it would be a lot easier to prove that it is a creature, government grants, whatever, to actually find it, to prove that it does in fact exist. However, whatever process that takes to prove it's an actual creature before digging into the woo side. Because once something's proven, say like bats, if you want to say, we know what bats are, if you want to say that bats, are from outer space, no one's going to say, well, bats don't exist, because they do exist, and then you can say whatever you want to about them and then dig into every single other aspect of what bats may be. When it comes to the possible existence of a Sasquatch, and I say that not for myself, I totally believe they exist, but when it comes to actually proving that, do you feel that digging into the woo-woo side or the paranormal side or whatever the what people would consider sci-fi side of this to be a distractor that would cause people to not really want to put their time and energy into discovering Bigfoot, or going back to what you said earlier, because of the money that's involved and the businesses that are involved, do you think that it just doesn't matter? No one's actually going to, say like the top researchers in the country aren't going to actually go full swing into finding Bigfoot because of how much money would be lost.
Yeah, I think they're trying to protect jobs
Mm-hmm.
and money, and science's excuse is, well, we don't have a body. Until we have a body,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
speculation. So we need a body on a slab. Well, I can assure you they have bodies on a slab. They've
Right.
got some in captivity, according to people that supposedly know. They don't last very long in captivity because they are not meant to be captive.
Mhm.
They run their own world. So, but they don't want that to be discovered. So, well, we need a body, and maybe they know that it's going to be virtually impossible to get a body because, number one, I think they bury their dead, and
Right.
they may, in rare instances, even cannibalize them in some type of ceremonies that's been intimated. No one's ever seen it, but it explains why there's no bodies. But
Sure.
many burials have been described, and they're lifting up boulders that are weighed like a car does, 2,000-3,000 pounds, and they dig a hole and put them in, and then they put this rock that'll never be moved for eons, and go about your business. So they bury their dead. So we're not going to find a body. So they won't examine the woo because they say that can't exist until we have a body. And I think maybe that's kind of the stall tactic, because there's been enough stuff done by us grunts, and I'm a grunt, and other grunts that are, smarter than I am, have done the work. And, and this is a cliche, but the evidence we have for their existence, if this was evidence to convict somebody of a crime in a court, it would convict them of a crime. The evidence we have that exists, circumstantial, philosophical, whatever, with everything but a body, if you had that type of evidence against someone accused of a crime, they'd be, but not in the court of science. Science is not our friend. If you want to know how gerbils mate, or the 18 different versions of sunflower seeds, well, look up your science. They'll tell you all about it. But they are not our friend, and so the last thing they want that to come to, the last thing they want is for that to come to light, because there's too much other things going on. But we have all been talking about the paranormal, the communication,
Right.
talking, accounting, blah blah blah. That would put them on a level with us. We might be actually a level or two below them.
I like that it's enough evidence to convict you of a crime. I mean, and you're right. Every single time they find a hair that they can't, they're like, well, it has some primate DNA or it has some human DNA, and it's 98% unconclusive. And then they're like, wipe their hands with it, be like, well, that's that. There's your, there's your proof. And then they throw it in the trash or something. I don't know. They never go further than that.
Well, they don't, but other researchers have come up with this, and Mel Kitchum. I'm not sure about her findings, but some of her stuff has been put in peer-reviewed, documents.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot of bad talk about her.
Yeah, you either like her or you don't. I'm really on the fence because she won't talk to me anymore because I'm a member of BFRO.
Right.
And BFRO is told, it tells everybody that listen that she's a crackpot and she doesn't know what she's talking about.
So real quick, Carter, before you get started, I just want to bring the Travelers of Infinite Rabbit Hole up on Melba Ketchum, right? She is the initiator of what's called the Genome Project, correct?
Yes.
So basically what they were trying to do is they were trying to gather DNA evidence from around the country or Canada, here in the North America, and basically map the genome of a Sasquatch and prove their existence that way. And when she came out with her quote unquote peer reviewed her article that she was trying to get peer reviewed, a lot of quote unquote scientists, right? Because trust the science, failed it. And but the thing that people need to understand when you're listening to the Sasquatch thing, and Carter, I'm sure you're a great guy. You seem like a really awesome guy, but the world of Sasquatch research is cutthroat. And if you're not in the same camp as somebody else, they will be very, very quick to cut you down.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of circumstances. And it's hard because Melba, she may have done a really good job,
Mhm.
but because science says it's bad, and then all these other people who aren't doing the research that she's doing says, oh, it's bad, it's terrible stuff, because they didn't do it.
Mhm.
The listeners, I just want you guys to understand that she approached it in a very scientific way.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to say whether or not she did really, really good research, because I personally have never seen the report. I know some people have. Some people say it's horrible, and some people say it's good. It depends on what camp you're from, and it's the same thing when it goes to the flesh and blood camp, to the woo camp. And it's I wish there was more camaraderie and people kind of being like, you know what, that's a really great point, because really, when it comes down to a creature like Sasquatch, and I kind of took a left turn here. But when it comes down to a creature like Sasquatch, which has not been officially proven on the books that it does exist, right? I've seen a Bigfoot. I know that they exist, right? And
Mhm.
you can tell me Mothman exists, but I've never seen one. So it's fun, and let's talk about it. I love to learn about it, but I know Bigfoot exists. I can guarantee you that one day it's going to come out that
Yeah.
Bigfoot exists, or existed at the time that I was 9 years old.
Mhm.
But what I saw, I didn't have any strangeness. I didn't have any quantum experiences with it, right? And somebody who's in the flesh and blood camp will be like, that's why it's not. That's why there's no quantum aspects to it.
Mhm.
But somebody in the quantum camp or the woo camp will say, well, I seen it disappear right into a cloud of smoke. And the other guy, it's just extremely cutthroat. But the real thing is that we need researchers in both camps, and we need researchers that cover both camps. We need 3 different camps. We need flesh and blood, woo, and then the people that look into everything and make sure everyone's crossing their T's and dotting their I's, and we all need to work together. And the thing with Melba Ketchum is that like I said, she did a really good scientific study, or she at least went at it very scientifically.
Mhm.
It's to say whether or not it was done correctly, but those that are listening and you immediately either turned off by the name Melba Ketchum, don't turn it off, because nobody knows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody has yet come forward and proven the existence to the world that Bigfoot exists.
Mhm.
So until that has happened, and we have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted, just play along. We're all out here together trying to solve this big old puzzle. All right. I'm sorry, Carter.
Oh
I just
no,
want
you're
to put that
fine.
out there.
No, I agree. It's cutthroat. It's nasty, and everybody wants to be the one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's only going to be one, the one, or a group. If you
Right.
find the body or get the answer, and so it's hateful. Now, she may have done a good job, but she cut off her access to me because I was a member of BFRO. She didn't want to talk to me. If you're in the BFRO, and I understand why, because BFRO sanitizes their data.
Well, hold on. Can we put this in here? Do you want us to keep this?
What?
The sanitizing data stuff?
Oh yeah. They've sanitized reports. I mean, they've done it to my reports.
Okay.
It's not a secret. It's
okay.
Terrible. But the DNA study, she may have come up with the same results, but there's other private people that have sent their stuff off, and they are working on it as we speak. But traditional results, when you eliminate bear, cow, any other human contamination of the DNA, it comes up 50% human, female, 50% unknown primate.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it stops. That's what we got. You can't compare it to a type specimen because, according to science and the government, we don't have a type specimen. So unknown primate, maybe there's a little monkey / gerbil running around that mated with a human female. I mean, tens of thousands of years ago, who knows what was around? So, but that's what they have come up with, and some peer review journals will agree to that's what we come up with, but without a type specimen, we can't say what it is. So it doesn't exist. We can't say it's a gorilla and human female hybrid. We can't tell if the DNA has been manipulated by a third party, which is where the aliens come in, ETs. So you don't know. But, she may have done some really great work, but she got chewed up and spit out. She's a veterinarian, so she's not a scientist. That's her, degree. I mean, she may have other degrees, but, that's one thing they use to poo-poo her. But when you come out with stuff, this is what the Bigfoot community does to you. They chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
There's factions. It's hateful. It's nasty, and it is ridiculous, and I've caught some grief because of my books, but I don't care. I know what I've seen. I know what the people have seen. So, I mean, I don't care what you think. I mean, I'm glad you have an opinion, but if you're going to be hateful and nasty about it just because you don't believe in it rather than having an intelligent conversation, then I don't care what you think, because you're not approaching this with the end goal in mind that we all have. We're all trying to get to the same finish line.
The thing is that if this thing ends up being flesh and blood, then the standard ways that we're going out there looking for this thing might be good enough, right? We might have to kind of evolve it a little bit to maybe go out there and think that we're actually looking for a person that doesn't want to be found. But the thing is that what if this thing is the woo or is quantum, right? We need to change how we're looking for it, because I thought this was where Jake was going with his question before about, the woo and everything. And, I thought he was going to go as, well, what's the purpose of looking for a quantum Bigfoot before we even have one to prove that it exists? Well, in my opinion, and again, Jake, I'm sorry, I thought that's where you were going.
How dare you?
But
no, it was just is it distracting from
right.
people actually wanting to be involved in it, because they're
right.
like, oh, well.
But the reason why we need both camps is because, well, the people who study the woo and they study the quantum side of Bigfoot, the Carter Buschards and the Ron Moorheads, and I'm sure there's a ton more. I actually have awesome books called Where the Footprints End, very, very good.
Yeah.
That cover this stuff as well. Is because we need experts in that realm, because if this ends up being something that's woo, our normal way of trying to look for an animal, like if we're going out and trying to find deer to hunt, isn't going to work. We need to look at it from a different angle. And if we look at it from two different angles, we're going to be able to see a hell of a lot more. Now, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on.
Yeah.
Or don't be on the side of it. You can sit on the fence. I don't care. That's where I'm at. I know flesh and blood things exist. I'm looking at my cat right now. He's flesh and blood. But I am very interested in the woo, and I'm not going to dismiss it, because what if it is the woo? I need to be open to that, so that when it comes time for me to finally retire from the Navy and go out there and start looking for this Bigfoot, I have the tools I need.
Thank you for joining us on part 1 of our interview with the author of Sasquatch, Down the Rabbit Hole of Strangeness. Please join us next week as we continue our exciting interview and dive into the woo side of Bigfoot. I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss any of it. Alrighty then, we'll see you next week. Bye.